Captain Elias Ward sat alone in the small control room of the Andromeda Rift outpost. Outside, cold stars shone silently against the blackness of space. The station was quiet, too quiet. The hum of machines was the only sound, and the air smelled faintly of recycled oxygen and metal. Elias rubbed his tired eyes. He had been on this remote post for almost 6 months now, far away from Earth and any other human colonies. His job was simple: monitor space traffic and send reports back to command. But the days were long and lonely. Space could make even the strongest men feel small and forgotten. Suddenly, the station's sensors beeped sharply. Elias sat up straight. Something was coming into range. He opened the main screen. Radar. A ship was drifting closer. A sleek, unfamiliar shape moving silently through the void. It wasn't one of the usual freighters or exploration vessels. This ship was different, elegant and fast-looking. Curious, Elias activated the external cameras. The view showed the ship slowing down, then landing gently on a nearby plateau of the rocky moon the outpost orbited. Seconds later, a figure appeared on the surface. Elias blinked, unsure if his tired eyes were playing tricks on him. The visitor was a woman, tall, graceful, and unlike any alien he had read about in the archives. Her skin was a deep, shining blue, and her eyes sparkled like stars. She moved with a quiet confidence, her every step smooth and measured. But what caught Elias's attention most was her outfit. She wore a tight, shiny red suit trimmed with white fur. It looked exactly like the Santa Claus costumes he had seen in old Earth videos. The contrast between the traditional Earth image and her alien beauty was striking. Elias felt a mix of surprise and curiosity. Who was she, and why was she wearing that? He reached for the intercom. "This is Captain Ward of the Andromeda Rift outpost. Identify yourself." The visitor stopped and raised her hand in a gentle wave. Then, in clear, perfect English, she spoke. "I am Lysera, an alien huntress from the planet Virelia. I come in peace." Elias blinked again. He had heard of Lysera before. She was a legend in many star systems, known for her skill in hunting dangerous creatures and surviving impossible odds. But this was the first time anyone in human space had actually met her. "And why the Santa suit?" Elias asked, a small smile tugging at his lips. Lysera laughed softly. "On my homeworld, the suit is a symbol of giving and celebration. It is an ancient tradition, something I wear when I bring a gift." "A gift?" Lisa's curiosity grew. "Stronger." Lysera nodded. "Yes. I come to give your species a gift, something to help you find joy and peace in this harsh universe." Elias stood and walked to the airlock. "Come inside then. It's cold out here." Lysera followed gracefully, her movements almost like a dance. As she entered, the temperature control adjusted to keep her comfortable. Elias noticed how she studied everything: the machines, the blinking lights, the sparse furniture with quiet interest. "I have traveled far," she said, "and seen many worlds. Humans are strong, but I sense that your people have forgotten something important. I hope this gift will help you remember." Elias nodded. "I'd like to hear more." Day sat down in the small common room, the red light of the control panel casting warm shadows. Lysera began to explain. "The gift I bring is not a weapon nor a machine to conquer. It is a device that connects minds in a new way. It allows feelings of happiness and trust to spread between people, making it easier to understand and help each other." Elias listened carefully. The idea seemed strange, but promising. In a galaxy filled with conflict and fear, such a gift could change everything. "How does it work?" he asked. "The device uses neural links to share emotions directly. It amplifies the good feelings inside us and spreads them. When people connect through it, they feel joy together and find strength in unity." Elias frowned. "Could it be dangerous? What if it changes people against their will?" Zara shook her head. "It only works with consent. No one can be forced to connect. It is a gift of choice, not control." Elias felt a cautious hope grow inside him. The answer: humanity needed a way to build peace, not through power, but through understanding. "Will you show me?" he asked. Sarah smiled. "Yes, but first, You must rest. The journey was long, and your mind needs to be open and calm, Elias agreed, feeling the weight of weeks without real human contact. He lay down on the small cot near the wall. Lysara placed a small device on his forehead. It was smooth and warm. Relax, she said softly. Elias closed his eyes. Slowly a wave of calm and warmth spread through his body. Images of laughter, bright lights, and peaceful faces filled his mind. He felt lighter than he had in months. When he opened his eyes again, Lysara was watching him carefully. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Better than I have in a long time," Elias said honestly. "That is the gift," Lysara said. "For you, but for all humanity. I've come to share this with you, to help your people remember the joy of connection." Elias sat up, energized and hopeful. "Then we should begin. The universe needs more of this." Lysara nodded. "Together, we will make sure your people are ready to receive this gift." Outside, the stars continued to shine, but inside a small outpost, a new light had been kindled, a light of hope. Friendship and joy, brought by the alien huntress in her tight red suit. The room was quiet as Elias sat back in his chair, his mind still buzzing from the strange yet calming experience. Lysara had left him with more questions than answers. She wasn't just a legendary huntress. She was something much more. Presence filled the small outpost in a way Elias hadn't expected. And now, her gift seemed to promise a future that was anything but ordinary. Lysara was seated across from him, her blue skin glowing softly in the dim light of the room. She wasn't just an alien. She was a symbol of something greater, something he couldn't quite put into words. So Elias said after a long pause, leaning forward, "This device, it connects minds? How does it work exactly?" Lysara smiled, the corners of her eyes crinkling in a way that made her look almost human. "It is not like any technology, you know. It's more like a bond, an invisible thread between people. It amplifies emotions positive. One's making it easier for people to understand each other. It builds trust and shared joy." "You felt it yourself, Elias. The warmth, the calm." Elias nodded slowly, still feeling the lingering effects of the device in his mind. "Felt ... amazing. I haven't felt like that in months." "But you're telling me this thing can help entire communities? Whole planets?" "Yes," Lysara replied. "It is not just a tool. It is a way to bring people closer together. It has worked for my people for generations. It has helped us overcome war, division, and misunderstanding." Elias felt a pang of envy. Humanity had never experienced such unity. Wars had torn nations apart, and even now there were factions fighting for power. Could something like this work for humans? "But why bring it to us?" Elias asked. "If your people have this, why give it to us?" Lysara's eyes softened, her expression thoughtful. "Because your people need it. I've traveled too many worlds, and I've seen the darkness that can fall over even the most advanced civilizations. But I've also seen the light, the kindness, the joy. I believe humans can be the ones to bring that light to the galaxy." Elias was struck by the depth of her words. "You really believe that?" "I do," Lysara said. "Your people are unique. You have an incredible ability to adapt, to change. And when you choose to come together, nothing is impossible." Elias sat back, staring at her. There was a quiet strength in her words, something that made him feel both inspired and, for the first time in a long while, hopeful. Maybe humanity wasn't as lost as he'd thought. Maybe there was still a chance. "Can we try it again?" Elias asked. "Use the device on more people. I think we need to see how it works on a larger scale. The crew here is small, but we could start with them." Lysara nodded. "I was hoping you would say that. It will be better if you understand it fully before I offer it to the larger colonies." With a sense of determination, Elias stood up. He could already imagine the possibilities. What if this technology could heal the divides between humans, bring people together in a way they hadn't been before? What if, for once, humanity could experience peace, real peace? He opened the door to the hallway and motioned for Lysara to follow. The small crew of the outpost was scattered around, each absorbed in their own work. Elias knew they would be skeptical. maybe even nervous about the idea of connecting with an alien device. But this was his chance to see if it could work. The first person they approached was Lieutenant Mara, a no-nonsense officer with a quick wit and a sharp mind. She was standing by the control panel, eyes glued to a screen. "Lieutenant Ilias called. Can I have a word?" Mara turned, eyebrows raised. "What's up, Captain? Everything okay?" Ilias nodded, glancing over at Lasara. "This is Lasara, a visitor. From Varelia? She's brought us something... unusual." Mara's gaze flickered between Elias and Lysara, clearly intrigued but cautious. "Unusual how?" Lysara stepped forward, her voice soft and calm. "I have a gift. It is a device that connects minds, allowing people to share their feelings and build trust with one another. It can bring happiness, joy, and peace. I would like you to try it." Mara eyed the device in Lysara's hand, skepticism written across her face. "I'm not sure about this, Captain." Elias gave her a reassuring smile. "Just give it a chance. No harm in trying, right?" Mara hesitated, then nodded slowly. "All right, I'll try it." "Right." Lysara placed the small device on Mara's temple, her fingers gentle and precise. The room fell silent as Mara closed her eyes. Elias could see her tense, unsure of what to expect. Lysara's calm presence seemed to reassure her, and soon a faint warmth filled the air. Elias watched as Mara's expression softened, her shoulders relaxing. After a few moments, Mara opened her eyes. There was a stunned look on her face. "Wow," she said, her voice quiet. I feel... lighter, like all the stress is just gone. I've never felt this relaxed." Lysara smiled. "The device amplifies positive emotions, allowing you to share peace with others. The connection between you two was brief, but it was enough to show how it works." Elias could see the change in Mara. She wasn't just relaxed. She looked happier, as though a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "I can't believe it," Mara said. This could really change things, huh?" Elias nodded, his mind racing. "I think so." Lysara turned to him. "This can help more than just individuals. It can unite people, help them understand each other, work together. That's the true power of the gift." For the first time in months, Elias felt the spark of something new, hope, and as the outpost continued to work, he began to imagine a future where humans and aliens could truly understand each other not through words, but through shared feelings. The future was uncertain, but with Lysara's gift, the path ahead seemed just a little brighter. The days passed quietly at the Andromeda Rift outpost. The crew, once skeptical, had come to embrace the strange and wonderful gift Lysara had brought. Every crew member had tried the device, and each person had experienced a sense of calm and joy unlike anything they had felt in years. The connection between them seemed stronger, their interactions more open and peaceful. It was as though Lysara's presence had unlocked something they hadn't even known was missing. Elias couldn't. Remember the last time the crew had laughed so freely, or when he had felt so at ease? But as was always the case with the vast emptiness of space, there was a shadow looming just beyond the stars. The morning after the crew's first collective use of the device, Elias was standing by the observation window, looking out at the silent expanse of space, couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. There had been no warning, no signs, but a part of him just knew. "Captain." The voice behind him startled him. He turned to see Lysara standing at the door, eyes wide with concern. "There's something wrong," she said, her voice calm but urgent. Elias frowned. "What do you mean? I've been sensing something... No, someone. Presence approaching. It feels hostile," she said, her blue skin almost glowing as she stepped closer. "I don't know who they are, but they're not here to talk." Ilias's stomach twisted. "How long until they arrive?" "Hours," Lysara replied. "They're coming fast." Too fast for a ship of their size? Ilias's mind raced. This wasn't the kind of situation they could handle with peace and understanding. He had learned much from Lysara about the strength of her people, and he was certain she was more than capable of defending herself. But this wasn't just her fight, it was humanity's. He quickly activated the station's communication system, sending a message to the crew. All hands, prepare for potential contact. Full alert. As he made his way to the command center, Elias's thoughts whirled. The device was meant to bring peace, but what if these new visitors didn't want peace? What if they didn't care about connection or trust or joy? He reached the command center where Lieutenant Mara was already at her post scanning the radar. She looked up as he entered. "They've changed course," she said, her voice tight with anxiety. "They're on a direct path here. No attempt to communicate. No signals. They're not responding to our hails. Do we know who they are?" Elias asked. Stepping closer to the console, Mara hesitated. "I've been running a scan, but nothing's coming up. They're not using any recognizable technology. It's almost as if they're deliberately masking themselves." Elise's thoughts were interrupted by a low hum. The lights in the command center flickered as the station's power levels fluctuated. A strange energy pulsed through the air, a faint but unmistakable vibration that seemed to resonate deep within the walls. Lasara's voice broke through the tension. "They're here." The view screen flickered, and a shadow appeared in the distance. At first, it was nothing more than a blip on the radar. But it grew larger, much larger, until it filled the view screen. The ship was enormous, far larger than anything the crew had ever seen. It was dark, sleek, and angular, its hull reflecting the light of nearby stars in a cold, menacing way. A deep silence fell over the room. Elias felt his heart race as he watched the alien ship draw closer, its design unlike anything he had ever encountered. "Should we prepare to fight?" Mara asked, her voice tense. Lasara stepped forward, her face calm despite the situation. "No. Fighting would be a mistake. They may not respond well to violence. This is about understanding." Elias wasn't sure what to think. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and they didn't even know who these beings were. But there was something. In Lasara's eyes, a quiet certainty that made him hesitate. "We need to try communication first," Elias said, his voice steady. "Mara, send a message again. I want to be sure they know we're peaceful, and keep the weapons on standby, just in case." Mara nodded and quickly got to work. The tension in the room was palpable. Elias couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. These new visitors didn't act like they wanted to talk. They weren't sending any signals. Yet Lysera seemed certain that peace was still possible. As the alien ship grew closer, Elias's mind raced. Could they really bridge the gap between humans and whatever these creatures were? Would they understand Lysara's gift, her message of peace? The moment stretched on, and just as Elias was about to speak again, the ship made its move. It began to slow, inching closer to the outpost. The station's automated systems beeped urgently, warning of the imminent arrival. Mara said, her voice sharp with urgency. "The ship is locking onto our communications frequencies. They're scanning us." "Are they attacking?" Elias asked, his heart pounding. "Not yet," Mara replied, her eyes glued to the screen. "But something's happening. It's almost like they're trying to communicate, but not in a way we can understand." Elias glanced at Lysera, who seemed completely calm. She wasn't afraid. If anything, she looked determined. Her eyes, though, full of concern, were steady and focused. "Like, get me a direct line," Elias ordered. "We're going to try one last time. Lysara, I need you to be ready." Lysara nodded. "I'm ready." Elias stepped forward, his hands hovering over the control panel. He had no idea what they were about to face, but he knew one thing. They couldn't give up without trying to connect. As the alien ship loomed closer, Elias sent a final message. "We come in peace. We are humans, and we have a gift of unity to share. We ask for communication. Please respond." The screen flickered once more, and then, for the first time since the arrival of the ship, a voice crackled through the comm system. The words were alien, harsh, and unfamiliar, but Elias recognized one word: humans. The room went quiet. He looked at Lysara, her expression unreadable. This was it, the moment of truth. The room fell into complete silence as the alien voice crackled through the communication system. Elias could feel the tension in the air, thick enough to cut through with a knife. The single word echoed in his mind: humans. It wasn't a greeting. It wasn't a threat either. But it was a signal that they weren't about to give up on their search for contact. The alien ship was close, and whatever these beings were, they were about to make their next move. Elias glanced at Lasara. She was calm, but her eyes burned with intensity. This wasn't just about the humans anymore. This was her fight too. She had come here with hope, and now it seemed that hope was hanging in the balance. "Can we communicate with them?" Elias asked, his voice low. "Any way to understand what they're saying?" Lysro stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the flickering screen. "We may not understand their language, but emotions can be communicated. The gift can help us. If I use the device on you, we might be able to connect with them on an emotional level, not just words, feelings." Elias didn't hesitate. "Do it." "We don't have time." Sarah moved quickly, pulling the device from her belt and placing it gently on Elias's forehead. For a moment, everything went still. The device was warm, almost soothing against his skin, and he felt a familiar wave of calm wash over him. But this time, it was different. This time, the connection felt different. He could sense something from Lysara. Her thoughts weren't just her own, they intertwined with his. He could feel her worry, her determination, and a deep, almost ancient desire for peace. Suddenly, his mind expanded. He wasn't just him anymore. He was us. Lysara's feelings, her thoughts, were merging with his. And in that space between their minds, something new began to form. An understanding. "Try speaking to them," Lasara said softly, as if her voice was coming from far away, even though she was right in front of him. Elias took a deep breath. It wasn't just words he needed now. It was connection. Understanding. He looked at the screen again. Where the alien ship loomed, still silent, he spoke, and his voice was calm but strong. "We come in peace. We want to understand you. We want to share joy, not conflict. Please listen." For a few moments, there was only silence. But then the voice returned. "Connection, ... attempt, ... failure, ... The voice seemed broken, fragmented, as though it was struggling to communicate. But Elias understood. This wasn't just a failure to understand language, it was a failure to connect. "They don't know how to communicate this way," Elias said, his voice clear. "They're not used to feeling." Lysara nodded slowly, her face thoughtful. Her species may have lost the ability to share emotions. Perhaps they've evolved without that capacity. But they are trying. "We can help them," Elias said, his mind still swirling with this strange connection. He could still feel the warmth from Lysara's mind, guiding him. He turned to Mara, who was still monitoring the situation. "Mara, keep trying to send peaceful signals. Let them know we're here to help. But this time, let's focus on empathy. Use the device." Mara nodded, a look of determination on her face. "I'm on it, Captain." As Mara began sending the new signals, Elias felt a shift inside him. He was still connected to Lysara, and now he could sense a growing warmth from the alien ship. It was faint at first, like a ripple across a calm pond. But it was there. They were listening. Minutes passed, feeling like hours. Gru continued. Their work, their eyes locked on the screen, but they could feel the energy in the room shift. The tension was still there, but it was no longer the cold, dangerous kind. It was a different kind of tension now. A tension of waiting, then, just. As Elias began to feel the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him, something changed. The ship began to move again. But this time, it wasn't in a threatening way. It slowed down, hovering just outside the station, as if waiting for something. Captain Mara called, her voice thick with surprise. "They're not attacking. THEYVE, they've stopped." Elias could feel it too. The emotional thread that had once been cold and distant was now warm. The aliens weren't ready to attack, they were waiting for something else. Lasara stepped forward, her eyes bright. "They are listening, but they don't know what to do. We have to help them make the connection." Elias nodded, could feel the growing anxiety from the alien ship, the sense of lostness, the confusion. Were scared. They didn't know how to reach out. They didn't know how to connect. "I'll talk to them," Elias said, his voice clear. "No, let them know they're not alone. We're here." He took a deep breath and looked at the screen once again. His heart was pounding in his chest, but his mind was calm, steady, thanks to the gift Lysara had shared with him. "We understand fear," Elias said, his voice rich with empathy. "We understand being alone, but we can work together. We can help each other. You don't have to be afraid." For a long moment, there was no response. Elias's throat tightened with doubt. Was this really going to work? Then the voice returned. This time it was clearer, stronger. Connection, Possible, Elias' heart skipped a beat. The alien ship was responding. They were understanding. "We accept, Feel the words weren't perfect. They weren't even entirely coherent. But it was enough. Elias turned to Lysara, who was watching the exchange with a quiet, proud smile. The gift was working, slowly. Surely the emotional connection was being made. "We did it," Elias whispered, almost in disbelief. "We did," Lysara said softly, her eyes glowing. "We didn't fight, we understood." Outside the station, the alien ship remained still, hovering in space, its dark silhouette framed against the stars. A fragile connection had been made, a bridge between two very different species, founded on empathy and trust. For the first time in a long while, Elias felt that humanity might just have a chance to find its place in the universe, not through weapons. Not through war, but through understanding. And as the crew of the Andromeda Rift outpost looked out at the peaceful alien ship, they knew that something extraordinary had just begun. The room was silent, the only sound the hum of the station's systems working overtime. The alien ship still hovered just outside the outpost, its presence both a mystery and a promise. Elias, still connected to Lysara's device, could feel the faint pulse of emotion from the beings aboard the ship. It was calm, now tentative, but hopeful. Mara, still monitoring the controls, glanced up. "Captain, they're still there. No signs of aggression. But they're not moving any closer. Either it's like they're waiting." Elias looked at Lysara, who stood by the viewport, her gaze locked on the ship outside. She was calm, but Elias could feel the flicker of uncertainty from her. Something wasn't quite right. "The connection is there," Lysara said quietly. "It's fragile. They've accepted the emotional link, but it's not enough. They're confused by their own feelings." Elias nodded, understanding. The gift of communication through emotion was powerful, but it was also new for these beings. They had been cut off from such connections for so long that even something as fundamental as trust felt foreign to them. "They need time," Lysara continued. "Time to process. Time to understand what this means." Elias stood tall, rubbing his temples. "We don't have time. We're not alone out here. There could be others who don't want peace. We need to figure out who these beings are and what they want." The screen flickered, and suddenly, the deep, raspy voice of the alien speaker turned, "We wish peace, but others come. They destroy." Elias's breath caught. He turned to Lysara. "Did they just say destroy?" Lysara's eyes widened. "Yes, it seems they're not alone. And from their tone, it doesn't sound like they're talking about us. They fear something much worse." Elias's mind raced. Could this be a warning? Are they trying to protect us? Lysara nodded slowly. "It's possible. They've recognized our efforts to connect, but they fear that something is coming that will threaten us all." "We need to figure out who these others are," Elias said, his voice sharp, "and we need to prepare." "Captain," Mara said, her voice urgent, "I'm detecting strange readings from deep space. It's faint, but it's there. Another ship much larger than the one currently in orbit. It's heading straight for us." "How long until it arrives?" Elias asked, his heart hammering in his chest. "At current speed, they'll be here within a day." "Maybe less," Mara replied. Elias turned back to Lysara. "What do we do?" The alien's eyes seemed to shimmer in the low light. "If we cannot help them, we will be in great danger. The beings that approach us. They are called the Aetheri. They have no interest in peace. They are conquerors, destroyers, and if they find us, they will wipe us out." Elias's stomach twisted. "Then we have no choice but to fight back. We can't let them destroy everything we've worked for." Sarah's expression hardened. That may be true, but fighting the Aethery will not be easy. They do not negotiate. Elias clenched his fists. Elias clenched his fists. Then we'll have to make them understand. The crew of the Andromeda Rift had always been small, but well-trained. They weren't soldiers, but they had all been through their share of scrapes, and they knew how to handle a crisis. But nothing could have prepared them for what was coming. The alien ship that had arrived, strange and elegant vessel, was nothing compared to the warships of the Aethery. Their ship was sleek, almost organic in shape, dark as a shadow, with sharp angular edges that gave it a menacing look. It was Big Hugh. Jan and Elias knew it was only the beginning. We need to prepare for the worst, Mara said, her voice steady. We'll get the defense systems online, but we'll need more than just shields. If the Aethery come, we'll need firepower. Elias shook his head. No, we can't fight them like that. If we start a battle, it's all over. We need to outsmart them. Find another way. Lysara stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. We don't have to fight them. There is another way. I've seen it before. If we can connect with their minds, Sif, we can share our feelings, they might understand. Elias was skeptical. You think that these Aethery will just feel peace and stop their attack? It's a nice idea, but these guys sound like they've never known peace in their entire existence. Lysara's gaze softened. I know it's difficult to believe. The Aethery are a brutal race, but they aren't entirely beyond redemption. The right connection could reach them. Elias sighed, running a hand through his hair. But we don't know how to reach them, do we? We will, Lysara said. We will. The gift you have, it's not just for the peaceful, it's for the lost, the angry, the ones who don't know how to connect anymore. I believe it will work. As the hours passed, the tension only grew. The crew was preparing for battle, but Elias couldn't shake the feeling that there had to be another way. The Aethery weren't like the alien race Lysara came from. They weren't interested in harmony or connection. But was there a way to break through their hatred? Elias sat alone in the observation room, watching the massive ship from the Aethery fleet grow larger on the horizon. His mind was in turmoil. Was it even possible to reach these beings? Was there enough hope left to save them more, to save themselves? A voice interrupted his thoughts. Captain. He turned to see Mara standing in the doorway, her face hard and determined. I think we've found something, she said, holding out a datapad. Elias took it, scanning the readout quickly. What is this? It's a communication log, Mara said, been digging through their signal frequency. They may be speaking in their own language, but the patterns, there's something familiar about them. I think they're trying to send us a message. Ilias's heart skipped a beat. A message? What does it say? Mara gave a small, uncertain smile. It's not just them coming after us, Captain. Something bigger. Something ... far worse. The clock was ticking. The Aethery warship loomed closer, its immense form filling the viewport, casting a dark shadow over the Andromeda Rift station. Elias could feel the weight of every passing second. There was no turning back now. The crew had done all they could to prepare, but as the minutes counted down, Elias knew they were facing a monumental decision. The alien ship, the one that had arrived first, was still in orbit, waiting. The fragile peace they had forged with the mysterious beings was hanging by a thread, and now the Aethery were almost upon them, with no clear path to survival except through conflict. We've tried everything, Mara said, her voice tight with anxiety, but I don't think we can talk our way out of this one. They're almost here, Captain. Elias stood, staring out the viewport, his mind racing. He didn't want to fight, not after everything they had done to avoid it. Lysara's words echoed in his mind. If we can connect with their minds, if we can share our emotions, they might understand. The problem was, Elias didn't know if the Aethery could understand peace. Their reputation as conquerors and destroyers seemed to contradict any hope of a peaceful resolution. But Lysara believed it was possible. And right now, that belief was their only hope. Lysara stepped up beside him, her voice soft but firm. Cannot wait any longer, Captain. They're coming. If we don't act now, there will be nothing left to save. Elias turned to her, feeling the weight of the moment. I know, but what if they won't listen? What if they're too far gone? Lysaris' eyes held his, unwavering. Then we fight. But we fight with the gift, not weapons. Our minds, our emotions, they're the only thing that can reach them now. Ilias's gut twisted. Could it really work? Could their emotions truly break through the centuries of violence and hate that had shaped the Aetheri into what they were? Running out of time, Mara said, looking at the control panel. The Aetheri are almost within range. If we don't make a move, they'll start firing. We need to try, at least, Elias said, his voice full of resolve. He turned back to Lysara. Let's do it. Let's see if we can reach them. If they can feel what we feel, maybe they'll understand. Lysara nodded. She knew what was at stake. She placed her hand on the device she had used before, a simple, elegant tool that had already connected her with Elias. This time, the stakes were higher. The emotions they would share would have to be stronger. More powerful, Elias closed his eyes, focusing on the task ahead. He had no idea how this would play out, but there was no other choice. The connection they had made with the alien race had been fragile, but now they had to take it to the next level. He could feel Lysara's calming presence next to him, her steady heartbeat matching his own. She was ready. Begin, he said quietly. Lysara activated the device, and in an instant, the warmth of the connection enveloped Elias once again, but this time it was different. It was stronger, deeper. The emotions they had shared before were amplified now, filling the room with an energy that Elias could feel in every fiber of his being. He could feel Lysara's calmness, her focus, her unwavering hope that peace was possible. But he could also feel something else, something that made his chest tighten. It was fear, deep and raw. Fear of what would happen if they failed. Fear that the Aetheri would destroy everything they had worked for. And then, as the device hummed softly in his mind, a new emotion emerged. Arga. Not his own, not Lysara's, but something else. Something alien. It was the Aetheri. Their hatred, their fury, burned through the connection. It was a vast, overwhelming force, filled with the memories of countless battles and the bitter sting. Of loss, it was the fear of weakness, of surrender. It was everything that had shaped them into what they were. Elias gasped, almost losing himself in the flood of emotions. He could feel the Aetheria's rage, their need for domination. But beneath that, there was something else, a seed of doubt, a flicker of something more. Could it be hope? Focus, Lysara whispered, her voice cutting through the turmoil. Don't lose yourself. We can reach them. We can break through. Elias closed his eyes again, focusing harder. The emotions swirling in his mind were overwhelming, but he knew he had to stay grounded. Couldn't let the anger consume him, and he couldn't let it take Lysara either. They had to share their hope, their desire for peace, and try to pull that seed of doubt to the surface. He reached deep into his mind, pulling from the connection with Lysara, feeling the warmth of her belief in peace. He thought of the crew, their unity, their strength. He thought of the new chance for humanity, the possibility of finding a place among the stars, not through war, but through understanding. And then with everything he had, sent it out to the Aetheria's emotions, his plea for peace. We don't have to fight, he thought, sending the message across the link. We don't have to destroy each other. There's another way, a way to end the cycle of violence. Please, listen. There was a long pause, and for a moment Elias feared they had failed. But then, just as he was about to give up, a voice echoed through his mind. It was deep, echoing like a distant THUNDERCLAP. We feel ... confusion, pain. You are not like us. Ilias's heart skipped. Connection was working. The Aetheri were feeling it. We're starting to understand. What ... Is this? It was a question, a real question, filled with doubt, uncertainty. They were trying to comprehend. The emotions they were receiving, the Aetheri, the great conquerors, were starting to question their own nature. Lysara's voice cut through the silence. Tell them they can choose. They don't have to be what they've been. They can change, just like we can. Elias closed his eyes again, focusing on the connection, drawing from the peace he felt with Lysara. You don't have to be your past. We all have the power to change. The future doesn't have to be filled with destruction. The E3's response was slower this time, as if they were processing the weight of what Elias had said. Can peace exist. Elias felt the surge of emotions, a mixture of hope, fear, and disbelief. But it was there. The seed of peace was planted, and now it was up to the Attire to decide. We'll help you, Elias said, his voice firm but filled with compassion. Together, we can build something new. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, the E3 ship began to pull away, retreating slowly into the darkness of space. They hadn't attacked. They hadn't destroyed. And in that moment, Elias knew. They had made the impossible choice. Peace wasn't just a dream. It was real.